I have accumulated a lot of random knowledge since moving to Paris. So in today's video, I'm going to address one of those random little questions that I got from one of you. Last year I was bebopping around the Marais and I ran into one of you and you asked me a question that honestly, it made me laugh because I forgot that I had this same problem when I first moved to France. The question that I was asked was, what's up with the fruit? Why can't we leave fruit on the counters here because it goes so bad? Now the reason why I thought this was so funny is because this actually happened to me during confinement. So as you know, I moved to Paris the day before the lockdown started. And one of the things I noticed within my first month here was that what I was used to doing, which is putting, my apples, my oranges, pears, bananas, whatever, in a big bowl and leaving it on the counter, that I couldn't do that because that stuff would go bad in like 2 days. And I just couldn't figure out, why is it that bananas are going bad in 2 days? Basically, I think that there are 2 potential reasons for this. First and foremost is that I think that Parisian apartments, they're old. They're 200 years old or 100 years old. The windows are old. And as a result, we have just a lot of just air and dust and particles that get in through our windows, frankly, that we're just not able to seal out. Additionally, we keep our windows open a lot because, of course, we don't really have air conditioning. And also, basically every apartment in Paris technically is legally required to have what is like an exterior ventilation. I don't know why it's there, but I think it's fresh air. But the point is it's like a legal requirement. So if your apartment doesn't have one, just know that it is legally supposed to have one. And so as a result, we just get a lot of particles, a lot of dust, a lot of pollution in our homes. I think that all of that pollution, all of those particles, all that dust and whatnot causes the fruit to go bad quicker. Now, the second reason why I think that you can't really keep these fruits and vegetables kind of out and on about is because of, frankly, how they treat food here. So in France, they have a ban on forever chemicals. You're not allowed to use lots of pesticides and whatnot on products. And in general, because they're not allowed to do a lot of, genetic modification, all that sort of stuff that is frankly allowed in the US, the food is a lot fresher. I mean, if you notice when you're buying food from the market, when you're buying food from the grocery store, that food is relatively fresh, right? Like it's coming from either in France or Spain or Belgium or someplace, and they kind of take the view that food is meant to be consumed very quickly here, in part because the food is very, very fresh. And when you have food that's fresh, that isn't covered in preservatives, that isn't covered in, wax like most apples are in the US, when you have food that's like that, the food just doesn't last a very long time. So then that begs the question of, what do you do? So what is it that I do? What solutions have I found to address this situation? Well, 2 solutions. And they're going to be, one is probably going to be a little really shock you, and then one is probably going to be what you expect. So first and foremost, you have to put all your fruits and vegetables, everything, it goes in the refrigerator. 100%, you have to have a fridge. I have mine set at what is -3, and that's what I found is the best temperature to keep it fresh and to keep it to make sure it lasts at least, 5 to 7 days, depending on what you have in there. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you put everything in the refrigerator, except for a couple things. I'll talk about those in a moment. And the second thing that you wanna do that's gonna make your food last longer, that's gonna make your fruits and vegetables last longer and stay fresher longer, is you don't actually wash it before you put it in the refrigerator. This is one of those random things that I learned very early on. Coming from the US, I, of course, washed everything before putting it in the refrigerator. I learned here that if I washed it, it basically went bad in the exact same amount of time as if I had it sitting on the counter. I don't know why that is. I have just learned to adjust my expectations. So as a result, I don't wash anything. Instead, what I have are all those little organization things, all those organization plastic things you see on those home organization shows. So I have those for my refrigerator, and let's say I buy a bunch of carrots, I will put the carrots in that and I'll pop that in my refrigerator, and then I'll use that up, and then when it's time to like use the carrots, I wash them thoroughly, of course, and then I cook them, and voila. And then I clean out the little like plastic thing that I had the carrots in. I know this is gonna shock some of you, maybe even horrify some of you, but I promise you, it genuinely works. This is the way that you have to preserve your fruits and vegetables. And ultimately, when it all comes down to it, most of the food, even if you're putting it in the refrigerator, you need to consume it within 5 to 7 days. It's just going to go bad. Food is not made to last long periods of time here. It is fresh and it's meant to be eaten quite quickly. So this of course means that you do have to plan out your meals a lot. One of the final things I will note is that I have generally found that the food I buy at the market will actually last longer than the food I buy from the grocery store. I think this is because the grocery store is able to ship from further away, and so as a result, items may spend more time in transit. Maybe they're more kind of packaged in the sense, right? Like everything you get from the grocery store, a lot of that stuff is packaged, it's wrapped in plastic. So as a result, maybe you lose a few days of time between like when the food was, you know, shipped and when you actually get it. And so I've noticed that as a result, it's actually the food that's going to last longer, the fruits and veggies that are going to stay fresher longer, are the ones that you buy at the market versus what you buy in the grocery store. Now, I do want to note that there are a couple vegetables that I will say that I do and can still leave on the counter, and those would be potatoes, garlic, onions. Garlic and onions have kind of the longest shelf life on the counter I've found here, so I generally don't have to worry about using those too quickly. But the potatoes, you still gotta use those pretty quickly. Like maybe 4 days max on the counter is really all you're going to get. So it's still something you want to consume quickly, but you don't necessarily have to worry about putting it in the refrigerator. It's one of the things that kind of stays fine still on the counter. So there you have it, my dears. An interesting little aspect of Parisian life that frankly I have just at this point normalized and found solutions for. But you cannot just have a fruit bowl anymore. Like that is a thing that is part of the past. No more lemons sitting out, no oranges, no apples, no bananas, nothing. Everything immediately goes into the fridge. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been helpful and also a bit interesting for you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.